90s cult classic cartoons that faced low ratings in the start. The 90s are an era of nostalgia for all cartoon lovers because we were blessed with some fascinating shows that made our childhood special. It is hard to believe that over 2 decades have passed since the golden age, and now you probably have some fond memories of waking up to some evergreen cartoon shows back in the day. However, some of these timeless classics were more of an acquired taste. When they first came out, they faced poor ratings and were misunderstood by the audiences, but they were all good enough to bounce back into relevance. Soon the fans started loving them, and they went on to run for years to come. In this video, we are looking to rekindle your nostalgia as we take you for a glimpse into your childhood with these iconic cartoon shows that redeemed themselves after a poor start in terms of popularity. So sit back to the end of this video and prepare for a journey to the golden days of the past. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Tintin, 1991 to 1992. The Adventures of Tintin by Hergé is among the most popular comics all over the world. This European comic was made into an animated series where Tintin, the young Belgian reporter, becomes a part of several adventures. He is accompanied by his dog Snowy, his friends Captain Haddock, Professor Calculus, and the comical detectives Thompson and Thompson. From solving murders to hunting for treasure, their adventures took the readers on a thrilling journey around the world. This cartoon series remained true to Hergé's fantastic style of sketching and storytelling. The makers did make some minor changes where they toned down Captain Haddock's drinking problem and did away with many of the deaths to suit a younger audience. The rest is just the perfect adaptation with brilliant voiceovers and the characters embracing just the right mannerisms as specified in the comics. The flawless adaptation paved the way for some amazing adventures where you had the necessary comic relief through the detectives and the exploits of Captain Haddock. No other character could pull off wacky phrases like blistering barnacles or thundering typhoons and make them sound cool. The stories had an element of science fiction to it, and there are some amusing bits, such as Professor Calculus speaking of high-definition television before it came into existence. This series took some time to catch up with the audiences who were hesitant about embracing the animated version of their favorite comic book, but once they did, there was no looking back. The Tick, 1994 to 1996. Superhero cartoons always found steady popularity among the viewers, and The Tick was no exception. It narrated the stories of the blue-clad superhero, The Tick, who was the protector of the city. While he protected the city from all forms of evildoers, he was helped by Arthur, an accountant in a moth costume. The Tick might be somewhat dim, but he is all that stands to safeguard the city from various threats. The Tick was created based upon the popular comic book created by Ben Edlund. The character of Tick is more like a spoof of the other superheroes, and this made the series a hilarious affair. The superhero here is 7 foot tall, freakishly strong, and is a little slow when it comes to intelligence. This is where his sidekick Arthur kicked in with the brains. They are shown to exist in a city where there are many other superheroes, but most of them are either incompetent or cowards. The voice casting was perfect, with Townsend Coleman being the right combination of heroic and hilarious. Fox could have placed the show at a more appropriate time slot where even the mature audience could be targeted. They eventually canceled the show even though a 4th season was planned and ready to roll. Despite the poor reception initially, The Tick went on to be hailed as one of the finest cartoon shows of the 90s. Swat Cats, The Radical Squadron, 1993 to 1995. The story was premised in a fantasy world of anthropomorphic felines. New pilots of the elite law enforcement agency of Mega Cat City were grounded following a tiff with their commander, who didn't approve of them pursuing Dark Cat, the arch-villain of the town. Although they were demoted to be mechanics, they turned out to be the masked vigilantes who battled the evil forces in their secret identity. Every episode in this series was intense and filled with some action-packed adventure. Besides the fluent narrative and interesting characters, the episodes also contained lessons and morals for the children. The witty dialogues, amazing music, and tons of action made this a favorite among the fans. The voiceovers by Barry Gordon and Charlie Adler were perfectly suited for the two heroes, and with the brilliance of the old-school animation, the show aced the visual aspect as well. Such was the popularity of the show that it went on to become the #1 animated show in 1994. Everyone was hoping for a long run of SWAT Cats, but it was abruptly cancelled because Ted Turner, the media tycoon, seemed to think that the show was too violent and not appropriate for kids. The fans begged to differ, but it was curtains for this amazing show. Even the request from the crew to complete the 3 unfinished episodes was ignored by the executives. In spite of the sorry ending, SWAT Cats constitute some great memories for the 90s kids. Gargoyles, 1994 to 1996. Gargoyles are a race of ancient heroic warrior monsters who exist as stones during the day and become active during the night. They existed thousands of years ago and had an alliance with the humans, and in 1994, their existence is revived. Now the revived gargoyles protect New York City from all the dark forces. A gargoyle commander, Demona, wants vengeance on humans, and protecting the city from their might won't be an easy task. Gargoyles was a surprise package when it comes to the usual cartoon shows of the 90s. For starters, it was the only dramatic animated series by Disney. The plot involved some tragic moments and realistic weapons that weren't the convention back in the day. The story involved elements of mythology and sorcery, while there are references to the modern-day cities of New York and London on the other hand. The voice acting from the cast members of various Star Trek series, including Avery Brooks, Keith David, and the others, was terrific. This was easily one of the most popular cartoon shows by Disney, and they even held annual fan conventions called The Gathering of Gargoyles. Initially, the makers had planned to make the show comical, but later on, they settled for the darker and serious version. Greg Weisman, the creator of the show, stated that the character of Lexington is gay and is in love with Stagheart from the London clan. However, this aspect was never explored in the series. This series is a great example of how iconic the cartoon shows in the 90s used to be.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog!
Courage the Cowardly Dog, 1999 to 2002. How can a cartoon series with a timid pink dog as the protagonist go wrong? This show was full of exciting adventures where Courage, the paranoid dog, lived with his elderly owners on a mysterious farm. The farm had some strange creatures and spirits, and to protect his owners from the adversaries, Courage had to overcome his fear and put up a brave front. It is needless to say that this wasn't easy for the Cowardly Dog. The plots involved are sophisticated and intelligently scripted to appeal to adults as well as children. The animation quality is great, and the way it captures the various expressions of Courage is great to watch. As the protagonist, Courage the Cowardly Dog is hilarious. Whenever he attempts something brave to rescue his owners, the theme of Mission Impossible starts to play in the background to add to the comical effect. In the first season, Courage had many dialogues, but the creators felt that he was speaking too much and shortened his dialogues, replenishing it with expressions. The voice actors Marty Grabstein, Thea White, and the others did a fabulous job in making the characters believable. The show had a very long run, courtesy of the immense popularity that it enjoyed among the fans. Mighty Max, 1993. Max is a 12-year-old boy leading a regular life when he suddenly receives a magical red cap one day. It is part of an ancient prophecy that chose him to be the one to fight evil forces with the powers of the cap. This cap allowed him to teleport across dimensions, and armed with this power, he has to fight the evil forces on Earth. He is not alone, however, and is joined by a talking fowl and a Viking who acts as his guardian. The show was based to commercialize a toy line, and it surprised everyone by turning out to be such a terrific show. When a cartoon series is made entirely for the sake of selling toys, more often than not, it lacks content. Mighty Max proved to be an exception, with a genuinely thrilling story that stood out against the other cartoons of its time. It had everything to attract the fans, from its uncommonly sharp humor to the fluid animation that made it a delightful watch. The makers invested in talented voice actors like Rob Paulsen, Frank Welker, and Tony Jay, and the results is for all to see. The show featured some cool monsters like giant crabs, two-headed dragons, zombies, and fish creatures. There were some exciting plot twists to keep the viewers guessing. Unfortunately, like many other great shows, this too was cancelled mid-season without a proper closure to the storyline. Batman Beyond, 1999 to 2001. It is 2040, and Bruce Wayne has retired as Batman. Now that Gotham City is without a protector, a new Batman takes his place so that the legend lives on. He is a high schooler named Terry who trains under the supervision of an elderly Bruce Wayne. In this futuristic world, Terry fights the criminals as Batman to keep Gotham City safe. This series deserves credit for the unique idea that envisions Batman to become someone other than Bruce Wayne. It did not go down well with some hardcore fans who resented the concept, but an unbiased viewing will allow you to enjoy the excellence of the show. It could have done better with some remarkable villains, but other than that, it is a refreshing twist to the Batman story. A complex plot blended with the intelligently scripted dialogues made this a great show. It was further helped with some talented voice artists like Will Friedle and Kevin Conroy. It was an unsaid rule in Saturday morning television that a gun would never be fired at the camera, but this show twisted the rules several times and got away with it. During the early days of the show, it relied on traditional ink and paint animation. It was only later that they went on to use digital coloring and made things slightly brighter. Batman Beyond might have been created targeting a young audience, but it attracted a significant number of adult fans.
The Pinky and the Brain, yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice, the teens have to spice. They're Pinky and the Brain.
Pinky and the Brain, 1995 to 1998. Some bizarre plots found their way into television as the 90s cartoon shows didn't believe in restricting the imagination. Pinky and the Brain is a classic example where the two protagonists are genetically engineered mice who live at Acme Labs. While Pinky is quite crazy, Brain is a genius with all the smart plans. Every night they try to hatch a plan to conquer the world before dawn. They plan this to prove their worth, and their nightly attempts add a comical touch to the episodes. Pinky and the Brain appeared as a series of segments on Animaniacs and eventually went on to have its own show. It is easily among the funniest cartoon shows of the 90s, where the brilliant plans of Brain would fall apart every time at the last minute. It was the same case in every episode, and yet the makers managed to make things interesting with some hilarious jokes and exceptionally expressive animation. The voice acting by Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulsen left nothing to complain about, as the characters would leave you in splits with their dialogues and mannerisms. Their friendship and their spirit of never giving up despite all odds are adorable to watch. Even with the absurdity of the plot, this show promises to be a great mood lifter with such amusing narratives, and is a must-watch for those looking to rekindle their love for 90s cartoon shows.
Can't hold back that wacky attack. No matter why, you're still a star. 'Cause you're
Bonkers.
Wherever you are.
Bonkers, 1993 to 1994. Bonkers the Bobcat is an out-of-work cartoon character. Previously, he had everything from fortune to fame, but ever since he went out of business, he hasn't been in his own elements. But his career takes a new turn when he joins the Hollywood Police Department, and with his partners, solves some interesting crimes and catches the cartoon criminals. Many seem to believe that this series was made to serve as a spin-off version of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but that isn't really true. The plot might remind you of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but in many ways, Bonkers is unique on its own. One of the great strengths of this show was the excellent voice artist Jim Cummings, who is regarded as one of the best in the business. There are some interesting characters such as Lucky, the overweight cop, who does things by the book. The chemistry between the quiet and reserved Lucky and the outspoken Bonkers is fun to watch. There is a generally light-hearted tone to the story that promises a lot of laughs. In short, if you are up for a fun cartoon series, Bonkers might just be the one to revisit.
Electric City is our friend. Hi, Electric City. Woo!
Two Stupid Dogs, 1993 to 1995. The protagonists for this popular cartoon were two dim-witted canines. One of them was an overexcited little dog, and the other was a calm sheepdog referred to as the big dog. They seem to have a nose for trouble, and their stupidity usually leads them to some calamitous results from which they have to redeem themselves. Their adventures form the basis of the several episodes in this light-hearted, entertaining cartoon series. Everything about this show was extremely adorable. For instance, the deceptively innocent animation style or the reassuring colors of the dogs will immediately associate likability for these characters. The stories are sometimes over the top, but they are not silly and are fun to watch with the satirical nature of the script. This was among the earliest productions of Cartoon Network and was instrumental in enhancing their reputation as a network that delivers quality content. Some episodes, like Vegas Buffet, where the two dogs are looking for a cheap buffet and get caught in gambling, are absolute laugh riots. The music has a simple touch of cartoon jazz and is just appropriate for the setup. Two Stupid Dogs ruled our hearts with its minimal yet fascinating narrative and is one of the 90s cartoon gems. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
Oops. Sorry, buddy.